Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, right at the top of the Amud, the beginning of the new Perek Chamishi. Zok the Mishnah, Haitzil, Le'esakav Esamach. They brought, for the Kohen Gadol, they brought him a ladle and a shovel. So what was the purpose of that? So he brings out the shovel filled with the ketayros. Then he takes his hands full, and he does chafina. He takes his hands full of the ketayros from the shovel, and he puts it into the ladle. He puts it into the kav. Hagadol v'gadol, according to the size of the Kohen Gadol, if he had large hands, according to the size of his large hands. V'katan levikatan, and a small Kohen Gadol, according to the small size. V'kach hayam midasa, and that was the required measurement. We'll see in Gemara what that means to say. Not as a machta b'yamina v'esakaf b'smala. Then he takes the machta, he takes the shovel. Now the shovel over here is a different shovel. It's not the shovel that we were talking about before, was the shovel of the ketayros. This is the shovel of the coals that, as we learned previously, he had that on the Roived Aravia in the Azara. He took that shovel of the coals in his right hand, the cup, the ladle with the ketayros in his left hand. And there he went in to the Heichal to do the burning of the ketayros and the Kodesh Kadosh. Look the Gemara. In fact, the Gemara Machta, it says he took the Machta. We already mentioned before that he took the Machta. Previously we mentioned that he took the Machta, because it says, we learned, not less a Machta, he says he takes a shovel and he scoops up the coals from the top of the Mizbeach, and then he descends. So why are we mentioning again the shovel? So as we previously said, also machta the gecholim. There, what we talked about earlier was the shovel full of coals. V'hacha machta ketayros. But here we're referring about the shovel of ketayros. The sanyo hitzile kaf reikan melishkos hakelim. They took out an empty ladle from the lishkos hakelim, from the chamber of the kelim. Umachta gedusha shel ketayros melishkos beis of tinas. And they took a machta, a shovel, heaped up with the ketayros from the lishka of Beis Haftina, that's where the ketayros was made. So this is a different shovel. This is the shovel containing the ketayros, and from that shovel, that's where the Kohen Gadol did the chafina. He took his hands full of the ketayros. So the Mishnah says, "Chofen malei chofta v'nois l'seicha kav hagadol v'gadol v'katan l'fikatan v'kan chaim yedasa." So the Mishnah said that he scoops up the handful of the ketayros, and according to whatever the size of the Kohen Gadol is, his hands, and that was the proper measurement. What do I need this cup for? What do I need the ladle for? The pasuk says, it has to, so just bring it in with his hands. What do I need this ladle for? More answers, Mishum Delayasher, because it would be impossible without, from his hands, from after doing the chafina and then pouring it into the ladle, it would be impossible to do the avodah. Why is that? How should he do it? Should he enter the heichal, and once with the coals, and then the second time with the ketayros? So should he do it in two trips? He has to bring the coals in because he has to burn the ketayros. He has to bring the ketayros in. So should he do it in two trips? No. The Torah says one bringing, not two bringing. It says havoachas. The Torah says it says one coming and one bringing. So that's not an option. Should we say nishkal ketayros b'chayfna v'nachtal machtal avaleil? Should we say that he has the ketayros in his hands and has the shovel on top of it? So that's still not an option, because kimata has mechilavet. When he gets there to the Kodesh Kadosh, what should he do? Nishkal v'shina v'nachtal machta. Should he take with his teeth the shovel and then put it on the ground so that he can put the ketayros on it to burn it there? So that's not an option, because you wouldn't even do this before a human king. It's not befitting. It's not bekovadig. It's not dignified. Certainly you would not do it in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom. They came in the Layasha of Dina Kedashkina Kedashkan Benasim. And therefore, since that's not an option, we have to look for an option. But we have a precedent in as far as what the Nesiim did. The Nesiim brought the Keteris in a kaf achas mole Keteris. So therefore here also we become a gadol brings the Keteris in the kaf. So the Mishnah says not to be a kaf is small. So then he comes in to the Eichel and to the Kodesh Kadoshim carrying the machta with his right hand and the kaf with the left hand. So does it make sense for the citizen to be on the ground, and the stranger should be up to the heavens? It should be for care. The main thing over here is the Keteris. The coals are just used to burn the Keteris. Why would you put the coals in the right hand, the Choshev hand, and the Keteris in the left hand? More answers for practical reasons. Zuma ruva b'zuma etis. And even if there's a case where they're equal, meaning the hands of the Kohen Gadol are so large that they're equal in weight, like the mice of Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchas, who was very large, as we'll see, that his hands were even able to carry more than 3 kavan of keteris, but still, still for practical reasons, the coals should be in the right hand, because the coals are hot. And Zutzainez, the Keteris, is cold. So you need the stronger hand, the steadier hand to carry the coals, the hot coals. So that's why the shovels in the right hand. So we're discussing Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchas, Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchas, that he was able to have in his hands full 4 kavan of Keteris. Kol hanoshim zordu v'zered ima alalagag. All of the noshim, they had zered, but his mother, but Alalagag. He used to say that his mother, the Zered, was up to the roof, was more than the other mothers. So that's why he was Zeiche to have this huge, this size, and this that he was this large, and he had this size of hands for the Keteris. So what does this mean? Kol Nashim Zardu. Some say it refers to arson, which is the grain that's used for porridge. The women that they were expecting, and that they were muberes and yoledes, they were fed this porridge, this arson, and hers was the superior to the other ones. Rabba Bar Yenison, who says, Rabba Bar Yenison, arson yafel achayla. Arson is yofa to a choyle. So arson is made from a grain which is crushed into 4 parts. So that food was used to give nourishment to the muberes, and hers was better than the other mothers, and that's why she was zeicha to such a child. That's one pshat. And some say it's referring to the shechov zera. Okay, the Ravavo Rami, he asks the steer on the psukim. One pasuk says, "You strengthen me for the milchama, for the battle." Here it says, "V'tazreini" without an olive. "V'tazreini" without an olive, and it says, "Uksiv v'tazreini chayil milchama." And another pasuk says, it says in Tehillim. The first pasuk was in Shmuel, and the pasuk in Tehillim in Perek Yudches says, "Tazreini," but with an olive. It says with an olive. So Omar, Dovid, Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch, David HaMelech said before the Rebbein Shalom, Zeri Sani, Ve'zeraz Tani. So Zeri Sani, it says Zeri Sani, which means which without an olive, and with the reference over there is that it's like a zoiro, winnowing. So when you winnow the grain, you separate the chaff from the grain. It was separated. So meaning, you were boyer the shichva zera that I was going to be born from. You separated. You were boyer at the highest, most superior. Tani, and then therefore you strengthened me, and you gave me, like girded me lemelchama, like an azar. That's the one. The reference was made with an olive, like an azar with a belt, and you girded me, you strengthened me lemelchama. More continues, says, Amr Allah Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchas, it was one time, so the way most learn is one time, it was actually on Yom Kippur, and he was talking with an Rabbi Bashuk, What was he doing talking to an Arab on the Shuk on Yom Kippur? According to the Tosefta, it's mashal that this was an Arab king. It was a davar of vital importance, and therefore during a break in the Avodah, he spoke to him. Another pshat is, the Marshal brings down the Yerushalmi, that it's talking that happened Erev Yom Kippur. But in any event, he was talking to this Arab in the market, and some of the saliva from the Arab, it sprayed onto Rabbi Shmuel's clothing. So therefore, they were geyser that the Moed Chacham has a din of Azav, and Azav, the reik, the saliva of Azav is matama, and it's matama begonim as well. So he became Tomei. So therefore, he became Tomei, was unable to do the avodah, and v'nechnas yeshev avomi v'shimesh tachtav, and therefore his brother had to take over from him. And his mother saw two of her sons on one Yom Kippur, both serving as a kohen gadol. She had this special schus that she saw both of her sons serving as a kohen gadol on Yesem Yom Kippur. Vishuv Amar Olav El Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchi, as he said another thing about him. One time he was talking with a certain Adon, a certain master, a certain lord in the Shuk on Yom Kippur, and again the saliva sprayed from the Adon on his clothing. And then he had his brother Yosef took over from him. And again on this Yom Kippur also, his mother also saw her two sons. This was a different son, a different second son, but she saw again two of her sons serving on Yom Kippur. Ton Rabbanon Shiva Bonim Hayula, she had 7 sons, Shiva Bonim Hayula Kimchas. The Kulim Shimshel Kuhuna Gedola, and they all serve in the Kuhuna Gedola with this type of a Maisa. As the Tosefos Shonim says that, as we'll see that this was considered that she had an amazing schos. She had a schos, a special schos, that she saw her son. So it must have been through this type of a Maisa that they were all served as Kohanim Gedolim, not because they died, but because of this type of an incident. And she saw 7 of her sons that they were served as a kohen gadol. What was your special schos that you were zeicha to this? She said to them, he said, in her whole life, the beams of the house didn't see the braids of her hair. Her hair was always covered. As the Tosefos Shonim says, they're always covered when they had to be covered, meaning when it was possible to cover it. When it was impossible to cover it, then not. But when it was possible to cover her hair, then she did, and the beams of her house never saw her uncovered hair. She said, the Chacham said that many other women did that, but they did not have the special bracha. So therefore, it is not exclusively because of this. It must be also that you're on the Madrega, you had other schusim to have this special bracha. Coming back, returning to the mitzvahs of the Avodah, Ton Rabbanon, B'kumsa, it says by the mincha that the kohen takes the mincha B'kumsa, with his kaimetz, with his fistful. So it says B'kumsa, with his kaimetz, Shaloi Yaseh Midal kaimetz, and has to be in his fist. He should not make a measuring kli, a vessel for the mincha. It has to be done with his hand. So iboilu, well, that's as far as the din of the kaimetz by the mincha. So iboilu mashiyasa mira lechafina. What about the mitzvah of chavina on Yom Kippur when the kohen gadol takes his hands full of the ketairos? What about over there? Can he make a measuring cup? Do I say it specifically by the mincha because there is big kumsai in his hand? Here it doesn't say that lashon bichofna, ela meloi chofna k'tar sam daka. It doesn't say bichofna loy, and therefore I would say it doesn't apply. Oy dilma yolif meloi mikumsa. Or perhaps, on the other hand, maybe we learn out Xer Shava Meloi Meloi, and we learn out from the case of the Kaimitz. The Torah says, by the case of the Kaimitz, it says in Perik Beis, Pasuk Beis, Meloi Kumsa. He takes Meloi Kumsa, so maybe we learn Xer Shava, and therefore on the Chofnav it says Meloi, even though it doesn't say Bich Chofnav, it has to be Davke in his hands without a kli. Tanashma, let's bring a rhyme from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, V'kaf hayasa midasa. It says, and a gadol figadol, katan fikata, v'kach hay midasa. That was the required measurement. So what does it mean to say by that? My love, shim ratzalas is mida oise. Doesn't that mean that this is the amount? This is the required amount, and therefore he can use a kli to do it. Maybe the maloi komtsai is the amount of it, the shear of the ketayers, but not that it has to be dafk in his hand. Maybe that what's coming to teach you, that he wants to make a measuring cup for it, that he could. Where says loy hachi kamar. What he means to say is, when he brought it into the kodesh kodashim, that he has to pour that total amount again into his hands. That he has to pour it into his hands, that total amount. That is the measure of it, the amount of it, and that's what he has to pour into his hands. But you could use a kli, so it's not a riot. Perhaps that's what it means. So the Gemara says, well, shall we learn from this that therefore that means that that's the procedure, that he has to do the chafina and therefore had to do the chafina again. So should we learn out from here that that is the procedure, that he has to do again the chafina and he can't just bring in the ladle and just burn it on the ladle? Where says no, it's not conclusive, because dilmashim loss is midoisim. Maybe what it means is that if you want to make a mida, you could. So maybe that's what it is. Or maybe it simply means is that he should not take any more than less. It has to be that total amount of the ketayers, not more, not less. So it's not conclusive. You can learn it one way or the other way, so we can't bring a raya one way or the other.